Hi guys, welcome to Beer School. This is our new concept. We're going to show you how beer is made, what goes into it and what makes it magical. So our first episode obviously had to be on hops, and we're out in the Czech Republic at the home of Saaz. Hops, glorious hops, a summertime flower and a long lost cousin of cannabis. First added as a preservative for their natural oils, they're now the dominant flavour in all kinds of beers. In a brewer's hands, they're the harbinger of bitterness and the bringer of citrus, and those big aromas and flavours are largely responsible for the growth of modern beer as we know it. But they really all owe it to one variety, the mother hop if you will, and that's Saaz. I'm not talking about Saaz as in the thing that was going to wipe out the entire human race a couple of years ago. I'm talking about Saaz as in the hop, which is made famous in Pilsner style beers. So here we are in the hop farms. You can see endless hops. You'd be amazed how many hops need to go into a beer, particularly very heavy hopped beer like an IPA can have kilograms and kilograms of the stuff at every point of the brew. 4 basic ingredients make up beer. Water to make it wet, malt to give it sugar, yeast to turn those sugars into alcohol, and hops, which make it bitter. Hops were used sparingly when first discovered. They kept beers fresh for longer, famously keeping British beers tasting good while they were shipped out to soldiers in India. Their properties for adding flavour and aroma only really became popular when big, bold American hops like Cascade started being used in pale ales in the 1980s. Thank you very much, Sierra Nevada Brewing Company. But all these hops were super versions, born from interbreeding old school British, German and Czech hops. But basically hops are just flowers. These are called cones. And what happens is they're picked every year and then dried and sent out to the brewers. And when you dry it, you concentrate the aromas that are in it. So inside all these cones are oils called alpha acids, and that's what makes a beer have a really bitter finish at the end. So as well as flavours, you're adding the bitterness to the beer that cuts through, and that bitterness varies from different varieties. So you can have a hop with a very low alpha acid, which could be about maybe 4, maybe 5%, or you can go all the way up to things like Chinook, these big American hops, which are about 15%, and adding those ramps up what's called the IBU, the International Bittering Unit. And that's a measurement of how bitter a beer is. Now for an IPA, that's probably going to be about 70 to 80. For something like a Pilsner, it's going to be down at about 35, 40, along with pales. And the really sort of the macro lagers go all the way down to 7 to 10, which is probably less than humans can actually perceive. So things like Budweiser are not very bitter at all, because they're meant to be drunk quickly so that no one realises that you're drinking it. So there's loads of points in the brewing process where you can add hops. The first addition is always at the start of the boil. So you've got your wort, where you've extracted the sugars from the malt, and you add your hops at the start of that, and that's called the bittering addition. And that's where you're adding bitterness to the beer. So the amount of flavours that come out of that aren't huge. So you just need to pick your alpha acids very carefully to get the right amount of bitterness. You can then add it at the end of the boil, and usually you have a couple of additions depending on what flavours you want to add. So it's at this point that you'd add your aromatic addition. So you get all of the aromas, all of the flavours from the hops, usually about 5, maybe 10 minutes before the end of the boil. And it's here where hops get really interesting. While 40 years ago in the UK pretty much all beers smelt of caramel and toast, now things are much more tropical. Cascade adds a grapefruity note, Amarillo gives an orange pith bitterness, Citra a massive pine and mango scent, while the British Goldings is smoother, spicier and subtly citrusy. And there's one technique to make all these aromas really shine. Another point where you can add hops is dry hopping. This is really fashionable at the moment, particularly in IPAs, American IPAs, because it adds so much aroma but pretty much no bitterness to the beer. And you get these massive hits of like mango, sometimes orange pith, passion fruit, all those things, and obviously pine is the most famous one. That all comes from the dry hopping, and the amount of they put enough hops in there to probably kill a man on the big brews. That's how much they need to put in to get that amazing hit. So when you're using hops, it's a very expensive process, and that's why the bigger breweries don't do it so much, and the smaller ones want to do it because that's where so much of the flavour is. Now Saaz is a relatively subtle hop, but still there's loads of tang, loads of lemon, a little bit of kind of appley freshness as well, which really helps cut through the very malty beers. Saaz is known as a noble hop, which is a bit of a loose term. Basically, it's an old world hop with low alpha acid bitterness, but lots and lots of aroma. Lagers produced in the Czech Republic are famous for having huge amounts of flavour and aroma without the big, bitter finishes of modern IPA styles. They may be more subtle, but to me that only makes them more beautiful. Without such wonderful mother and noble hops, we'd still be stuck drinking boring bitters and, well, milds. But good old Humulus Lupulus, along with some heroic farmers and brewers, have saved us from mediocrity and got us all addicted to big, bitter, aromatic beers. So join us again soon in Beer School. We're going to be talking about malts, we're going to be talking about water, we're going to be talking about yeast, we're going to talk about all the other things that you can add to beer, things like coffee, things like oats. It's going to be really, really cool. So check us out next time.